Hello everybody, today I'm going to talk about electron transport chain, which is a third lesson related to glycolysis and Krebs cycle, and now we will enter to electron transport chain where we could produce energy. So that would be my reference here, this book, Biology Today. Okay. So here I remind you with the first step it was glycolysis, and after that we went to Krebs cycle, okay, where we produces here the net edge through this transition state, and then we enter the citric acid cycle or the Krebs cycle, where we produce here another net, here a third net, and here the ATP, and here the fat, okay, and here another net, and then we calculated the energy as here was mentioned in this paper to obtain at the end 38 ATPs. That happens through the electron transport chain. Okay, I will discuss it in this lesson. Today I will talk about the electron transport chain, okay, which is a series of protein complexes. Here you could find those series of protein complexes, okay. At the end it generates ATP, okay. So I will talk about this in detail through my presentation, because here also we have ubiquinone, okay, is a carrier of electron, and cytochrome C. I will talk about them here in detail in my presentation through. But here first I would like you to see that here is the mitochondria, okay. So it contains an outer membrane, and here this is the outer membrane, and here is the outer compartment, and here is the inner membrane, which is the crestia, where the electron transport chain occurs, or those protein complex are associated here within the crestia, and here is the matrix where the Krebs cycle occurred. And as we know, everything occurs in the mitochondria is aerobic, okay. So when I talk about glycolysis is anaerobic. It occurs in the cytoplasm, but here the Krebs cycle occurs in the matrix, and the electron transport chain occurs in the crestia, here in this cell, this membrane here, okay. So this is the inner membrane, and here there is a magnification of this inner membrane, where the channels or the proteins here, the complex, are associated, okay. So here is the outer compartment, and here is the inner membrane, and here is the outer membrane, okay, of the mitochondria. So here we recognize here those are the complex proteins which are responsible for the electron transport chain. So the first one is named NADH dehydrogenase, and the second one is called ubiquinone. No, this is ubiquinone is a carrier of electrons. So here the first one is NADH dehydrogenase, the second one is cytochrome B, C, and the third one is cytochrome oxidase, and here we have ATPase synthase, which is responsible for the production of ATPs at the end of this process, okay. So here we will recognize that we have also ubiquinone, which is a carrier of electron, and here we have cytochrome C, which also is a carrier of electron. So here when we got the net H, okay, NADH is attached, the NADH which comes from the glycolysis and Krebs cycle. So we recognize here each net is associated with hydrogen, okay, as well. So here it will release its electrons. Okay, these electrons are the yellow triangles. As long as it enters here, then the net will be dissociated, and here we will find the ubiquinone will come here and transmit those two electrons. As long as one electron is transmitted here, did you remember this hydrogen? One will be entered and here it transmits the other electron, so the other hydrogen or proton will be entered again. Then this ubiquitin will move those two electrons to go to the cytochrome B. Okay, so then it will release them inside here, to release those two electrons inside here. Okay, and then the cytochrome C will come, but here in this cytochrome C it carries only one electron, one at a time. Once there is one electron out of this protein, so it will put or insert here one proton inside of the outer membrane here. So this electron will be traveled here until it reaches here the cytochrome oxidase, and then here, okay, we have, once we collect 4 electrons, so we will obtain that the oxygen is the final acceptor of these electrons and the proton to form 2 molecules of waters at the end here, 2 molecules. So here the oxygen will enter, okay, and the other oxygen here will enter, and we will get four hydrogen molecules, okay, will enter, and then all of them, they will go out of this pump of this protein, okay, as 2 molecules of water. Okay, so here this is one molecule and this is the other molecule. Okay, and as long as we find that we got those electrons out of this protein, so here we got 4 electrons out of this protein, that means it will be associated with entering of 4 other hydrogens inside of the outer membrane. So here we will recognize that the concentration gradient of the hydrogen will be very high compared with the inside here. And here the hydrogen can't pass or can't penetrate this inner membrane. So how it could enter? It will enter through this ATP synthase. Okay, so here we will recognize we will get a high flow of this hydrogen. It will pass here, okay, along this pump, and as long as we have a high flow, okay, so at the end it will be responsible to generate or to produce a reaction between the ADP and phosphorus. Okay, so here the phosphorus and this ADP, they will combine together through when they are attached to this pump to form an ATP. Okay, and here another ADP will come. Okay, as long as we have lots of proton released here. Okay, so another ATP will come, and ADP, adenosine diphosphate, and then this flow will be responsible for the binding or the initiation of the binding process of phosphorus with ADP to form ATP. At the end, this ATP is a source of energy in our body, which we consume. As I told you, here is the inner compartment of the mitochondria, and here is the outer compartment of the mitochondria, and here are the protons. Okay, so here we have the complex protein, okay, which are actively transport. They act as an active transport mechanism because they transmit electrons through them. As you see here is the electrons. The electrons are coming from the NADH or fed FADH2. As long as we have 1 electrons entered, as I told you, the one hydrogen or 1 proton is released. Then it passes through this electron. We have 2 electrons here. Will pass through the ubiquitin, and then this here we have this electron. Once the cytochrome C will carry another electron, so once we have 1 electron released from this protein complex, then we have a hydrogen proton will be going out as well at the same time. So here it will transmit those electrons until we get here 4 electrons here, or each 4 electrons here will bind with an oxygen, okay, and hydrogen. So here we will recognize that it will produce a water. So if we got two oxygen molecules, okay, and four hydrogen, they will be attached to four electron and they will release this water molecule. So as I told you, each NAD is responsible for releasing of one molecule of water, and each FADH will be responsible also for releasing of one molecule of water. So now to talk about the energy itself, the production of energy. Here we could find that hydrogen couldn't pass through this membrane, okay? How could it pass? It will transmit through this ATP synthase, okay? It acts as a pump. So here there is a high flow of hydrogen. As long as the hydrogen passes here, there is a generation of ATP because it accelerates the reaction of phosphorus with ADP. It enhances this reaction and then it will form another ATP which will be then consumed through our body in our exercise or respiration or anything. So this chain is also called as respiratory chain. Okay, so here we finished talking about this electron transport chain. Now I will talk about the energy consumption. If you remember this paper from the glycolysis, we got that we have two ATPs from the glycolysis and two NADH from the glycolysis. We multiply each NADH by 2 because we have 2 pyruvate. If you remember, each glucose will give 2 pyruvate. So here each NAD is responsible for the production of 3 ATPs. So 3 multiplied by 2 will give 6. Okay, so we got from the glycolysis 8 ATPs, and from Krebs cycle here we got 1 NADH from the transition state. Okay, when we convert pyruvate into acetyl-CoA before entering the cycle. Okay, so this is 1 NADH released, and we have 3 NADH released from through the cycle. So now we have a total of 4 NADH. We multiply it by 2 because each pyruvate enters in one Krebs cycle. Okay, so the other pyruvate will do another Krebs cycle. So now we will have 24 ATPs, and here the FADH2 is responsible for releasing of 2 ATPs. Okay, so I will multiply it by 2 to give 4 ATPs, and here we have the 2 ATPs released from this cycle here. Those are the 2 here, the ATP we multiply it by 2, okay, to give these 2 ATPs. At the end we will the summation of them will be 38 ATPs. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed these videos. Thank you very much. And please don't forget to contact with me on my Twitter channel or on WordPress, or by sending any comments through my YouTube channel. Thank you very much.